Hello.
Hello, Daniel. Oh, it's so good to see you.
It's great to see you.
My guest today is Daniel Roberts, who is the second violinist of the Castalian Quartet, who are, please God, going to launch the second half of our season on February the 27th. So, Daniel, you're in London at the moment, right?
That's right, yes. Sunny London.
Oh, really? Were you being facetious?
Well, I was, but I have to be fair, it was briefly sunny after lunch today.
So, Daniel, when do you head out on this tour?
We set out for Washington, D.C. on Thursday with the first concert on Friday.
How long does it take to fly from London to Washington?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. It's probably about 7-8 hours.
And then the time difference is what?
You're getting all the difficult questions in first, aren't you?
No, I'm just wondering how long it'll take you to adapt and adjust.
Yeah, well, this is a really difficult thing to judge. I know that on the last tour, I went a little earlier. We were playing in New York State. I went a little earlier than the others, thinking, oh, I'm so clever. I'll have acclimatized and they'll all be tired. And then come the concert, I was exhausted and they were all having an energy spurt. So
yes, of course. It happens like that, yeah.
That's what happens. So I think, I think we're going to be fine. We're playing in the afternoon in Washington, so we should, should be okay.
And how long is it since you were in the States?
Well, we toured in November, and that was our first time back after COVID, which was very, incredibly exciting and also incredibly tiring to be back on the road again. And the kind of, well, I suppose that there are the extra complications with all the COVID restrictions and testing and taking extra time to travel, of course. But, not being in the swing of touring, it was really, we only we took a week off after the tour, and that was really necessary.
The four of you live in different places?
Well, the three of us live in London, and Ruth, who is new to the quartet since we were last in Vancouver, Ruth currently lives in Manchester, but it's only a couple of hours by train, so it's nothing.
It's not that far.
No. So we made her join a string quartet. We weren't going to make her move house as well.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So I see she's part of what's called the Manchester Collective.
That's right. Yeah, who are a fabulous group, and thankfully, the way their lives work and the way our lives work seem to coexist perfectly. So Ruth can do both, which is fantastic.
That's wonderful. So how did you, as a quartet, like you first started out as a quartet in 2011, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how horrible was it for you when the virus first hit? I mean, as a quartet, did you have to stop rehearsing, or did you manage to carry on, or what?
Well, our situation was we were, it was Friday, March the 13th, and we were in New York City about to make our Carnegie debut. And that was the first of the Carnegie concert cancellations was our concert. So there was really, it really messed with our heads. Certainly, I mean, I can really only speak from my experience, but being there, obviously that's a big moment in one's career, and it's kind of, it's a dream to play there, and it felt like everything had led up to that moment. I mean, in retrospect, and you start out struggling away, then doing competitions, all that kind of stress, and you're in the zone and rehearsing and practicing constantly, and then it kind of got to that moment, and it felt like a kind of unraveling. It felt like, oh, that's gone. And I personally, and I think we all did this, we didn't look at our instruments even for quite a while. I mean, we couldn't be together. I mean, of course, at that moment when lockdown struck, we didn't know, we had no concept of how long it was going to last. So we all kind of went to our safest places, I guess. And they were, and then of course we couldn't meet. And so we each had quite a lot of time away from our instruments. And in the end, I think that was incredibly healthy. And coming back together as a quartet, somehow I think our perspective and our priorities are maybe a bit different to what they were.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, first of all, when did you come back together as a quartet?
We came back together that was March. We stopped, and our first concert was in September of 2020. So we came back, I can't remember exactly, a couple of weeks in the lead up to that. And then, it was, as with everything, we had a little, a few concerts, and then suddenly everything was stopped again. And then there were many decisions about, okay, legally, we could get together and rehearse, but is it really safe? How much do we trust our dear government? And of course we're a string quartet, so we all felt differently. And, we all have loved ones around us, elderly loved ones.
Like me.
Is rehearsing a Haydn string quartet more important, or is it more important that we can spend some time with the people we love? Those are really difficult questions. Yeah. So there we go. But I think, I think we broke free somehow, or it feels like it anyway, of that kind of like need to be almost like competition ready for concerts, that kind of pressure. Of course, we of course still feel pressure to have, play to the highest standards we possibly can, etc. But, if something's not quite together or something, who cares, is our feeling. And I personally found that reflected in audience reactions, like when we were in the States in November. It was a lot of people's first time back in the concert hall, and there was such an energy for that we were just gripped, and it became a lot more than the intricate details of string quartet playing.
So we are playing to 50% houses, and we've decided to do that right through to the end of the season, even if the health authorities say in March or April you can go back to 100%, because the notion of reseating everybody again is just, it's impossible.
Yeah.
But from those people, there was such an energy. And the other thing was there's such silence in the hall when the music is going on. I mean, it's just, I think maybe people were too scared to cough or something. I don't know.
There's definitely that. I'm sure. The silence between movements. We were playing, it really struck me the other day, we've got this residency at Oxford University now, and we played there, and between movements, it was complete silence. And I thought, what is this? Is it people just afraid to cough, or is it, is it people just really engaged because they haven't had, live concerts? It's hard to say, probably a mixture of both.
You know what else I think maybe a little bit, 22% contributes to that, is the fact that we're not printing programs anymore. We put the programs and the notes up on the website so that people don't have these things in their hands to look at when they're sitting in the hall, which can be distracting.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's, there's very little between you, the musicians and the music and the audience that's sitting there, all those barriers have been sort of taken away.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I kind of think that's how it should be. Anyway, it's wonderful to be back, and we can't wait to be back in Vancouver. It feels, I can't believe it was 3.5 years ago or whatever.
Is it that long ago?
It's that long, yeah.
And you did that wonderful school concert for us as well. And we had such a marvelous time.
I spent the whole time there because if you remember, I'd been there a few days before because I have relatives on Vancouver Island. And when the quartet arrived, it was just clouds everywhere. And I was saying, this is one of the most beautiful cities. You just wait. And the clouds never cleared the whole time they were there.
Well, I have a word with God. We used to run a chamber music festival in the summer. And the festival took place over 2 weeks, and it was the last week of July and the first week of August, because I had figured out that those are the 2 weeks where, as close to guaranteed, you'd get wonderful weather in Vancouver. And I believe the festival ran, I think, for 20 years, and only twice in 20 years did it ever rain. And I remember I used to walk around boasting and saying that I can make a deal with God that it doesn't rain, but I can't get money out of the government to support the festival.
Well, I was going to say you're negotiating with agents all the time, so God should be easy.
Yeah. So this is a very lovely program you're playing, and I'm thrilled that you're playing Fanny Mendelssohn when you're here.
Oh, what a piece.
Well, now, did she write many quartets?
No, as far as I'm aware.
Is that the only one?
It's the only one. And it's just, every time we play it, I love it even more. And it's not, I think people expect it to sound like Felix, somehow to sound like Felix Mendelssohn. It's completely different music. For me, there's more kind of Schumann influence. And I mean, you can hear, of course, her brother's influence, but it's her own voice, very much her own structure. And audiences just love it, and so do we. So I'm thrilled that we're playing it for you.
When did she write it in her life?
Late in her life, because I know that the series of events is that she wrote it, and Felix was critical, I think, especially of form and structure. And then she died. And then, of course, Felix wrote his, tortured F minor, and then he died. So that's the order of events. So it's all it all happened late in their short lives, I would say.
I mean, he just completely went to pieces after she died, didn't he?
Completely, yeah. And we've played a number of times now the Fanny Mendelssohn and the Felix Mendelssohn Opus 80 in the same concert. And that's quite something, because the Fanny Mendelssohn is E flat major, warm, and then you feel the pain, of course, of the unrelenting F minor of Felix's work. It's a nice program.
Yeah, I was actually yesterday watching something. My husband asked me how old Mozart was when he died, and of course I had to look it up. And then I went to look up Schubert, and Schubert was actually younger than Mozart when he died. It's incredible to think what these people achieved in their short lives.
No, it's completely mind-boggling, the genius of these people. And I mean, also, of course, we're playing Schubert G major in the program, and that's surely the work of somebody who's lived a long life. But no,
there must be people around like that today, do you think? And yet we don't sort of. Well, in the days when Mendelssohn and Schubert were alive performing, and well, of course, Mendelssohn was a conductor as well, wasn't he? The Leipzig Gewandhaus, and he resurrected Bach, didn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, are there people who have such an influence today and then suddenly they've gone at a young age? I can't think of any.
I don't know. I mean, I suppose we do, you have child prodigy violinists who, suddenly disappear. But I think, by now, are we a bit, I'm not tired of that, but we don't we're not probably so gripped because there's so much going on. We have so much information and entertainment at our fingertips.
It's a different world.
It's a different world. Yeah.
Now, I think you also teach, don't you?
I do.
And how do you manage that with COVID and then with touring and?
Well, actually, when we last met, I think then I had 2 teaching positions, which since I gave up, before the pandemic, simply because I felt like I couldn't balance string quartet life and giving enough to the students. Certainly it was impossible to give regular lessons. But we have, we have taught over Zoom during the pandemic. And, there are ways of doing it. In fact, after this call, I'm teaching a quartet from the University of Iowa, and we already had some sessions with them. And that's worked quite nicely in that the groups send a recording to us that we can look at and listen to and think of some advice to give, so that when the call happens and inevitably, well, either one of them has COVID and can't be there, or the line's not good enough and all this kind of stuff, you can still talk and have some interaction.
Oh, good. Yeah.
We did do some kind of online lectures about some of our pieces for a university. And that was disastrous because the university could not make the students put their screens on for the video call. So I was sitting giving this lecture in my living room to a blank screen. And that was really disconcerting. So it's yeah, I don't know. I'm glad I'm not doing that all the time. And hats off to teachers. I know many who have plowed on teaching over Zoom and have found it exhausting and demoralizing somehow, but still necessary and better than nothing.
Yes.
But I think it takes tremendous energy to sit there and stare at a screen and have such, teaching such personal interaction. And I really admire anyone who can do that successfully.
Gosh, so do you have any more Wigmore Hall concerts coming up in your future?
Yes, in May. Actually, we're playing the Fanny Mendelssohn and Felix Opus 80 program. I think it's May the 1st, I'm pretty sure. We were supposed to have one last month, but 2 days before I got COVID.
Yeah.
So that, went out the window. Yes, and then, we have exciting plans that I'm sure I'm not allowed to talk about in the next seasons. But May is the next one. And, as you know, Wigmore just extraordinary how they've, kept going all the film concerts. And we were so lucky that, when we could, nothing else was going on and we could step on the Wigmore stage and play to huge audiences because people were tuning in from everywhere.
Yes.
Which is also something to get your head around when you're playing to an empty hall, knowing that you've probably got your biggest audience of all time. Yeah.
These are funny times, aren't they? And I mean, I actually, the only way I can deal with what's the ups and downs of what's going on now, like we were so excited to get going again, and then boom, everything stopped again. And that's, as you know, it's pretty disheartening and discombobulating. So the way I deal with it is I just look further ahead into the future. And I book concerts, and poor Sarah, whenever I say to Sarah, I've had an idea, I can see her going into a state of physical tension before she even says a word. But that's the way I deal with it. And that is just by booking more concerts, into 83, 84. And it's like I'm a teenager. I just keep praying I'll live long enough, or still have my hearing and my teeth and everything.
No, I think that's wonderful. I found it really hard to look ahead. I mean, now it's much easier because there's this general sense that the end might be in sight. But so much was getting cancelled. It was hard to dare to look forward to something.
Tell me about the Carnegie Hall. Has that been reinstigated?
Yes, in fact, we're there on the 15th of February.
Great. So, I mean, all these wonderful places are your warm-up sessions for Vancouver.
Well, in fact, that's exactly how we've described it to Carnegie, and hopefully that they've understood. But if we don't get invited back, we'll know it's because we told them it was a warm-up for you.
Yes, I mean, I sometimes I look at Wigmore and I think, well, when we're feeling pretty hoity-toity, we call ourselves here the Wigmore Hall of the West. Well, listen, you had COVID and you've been boosted. I guess you had Omicron, right?
I must have done.
Didn't last very long?
Well, I had this, I just felt dizzy. And that lasted for about 10 days or something. And, I've heard of more people just generally feeling a bit dizzy. It was a bit annoying, really. But that was it. I didn't suffer badly. Now I'm completely fine.
Well, listen, I hope you have safe travels. And I guess you've been told to have the Arrive Can app on your iPhones to see.
We absolutely have. Yeah.
And if you need to get any tests or anything, we're on it here, so don't worry.
Yeah, no, I think we're David Rowe and Ariel there.
Yes, they're amazing, aren't they?
They're amazing. Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I mean, we here, well, especially on the West Coast. Now, your management is in Boston on the East Coast, but at least people who live on this continent have an understanding of the breadth of the landmass that has to be gotten across to do a tour of the States. I mean, it's like going right across Europe. It's probably even bigger than Europe. And it must be difficult for a British management company to be able to figure out how they're going to get somebody from New Mexico to Vancouver, perhaps in the space of 4 hours, and how, there's connections. And it's hard to tour people if you don't have a very good knowledge of the geography.
Well, and I think even more so now, because, I mean, we're having, of course, the concerts that came back that had been cancelled but postponed couldn't come back in the same order.
No, of course, yeah.
So actually, our tours at the moment are not making much geographical sense. But still, miraculously, they've made them work. And travel has been, while the last tour all worked out, this one is slightly easier in terms of that. There was an awful lot of driving in the last tour. There's not this tour, for example.
And what is the situation nowadays? It sort of went quiet because I guess string players haven't necessarily been traveling that much. But what's the cello situation on aeroplanes now, traveling? Is it still a bloody nightmare?
I mean, of course they have to buy a seat. Chris has to buy a seat. But we flew, where did we fly to? The other day we went to Lucerne in Switzerland to give a concert. And Chris lives near me now in London, so we traveled to the airport together. It was like, taxi at 4:30 in the morning. And we got to the check-in desk and he said, Daniel, save yourself now, go through security, just go. And I said, no, don't worry, mate. I'm with you all the way. You know, I'm here to support you. The woman at the check-in desk lifted up the phone, and I kid you not, 1 hour later, she put the phone down. And that's basically very common, because they have no idea of their own rules. And the people who they call to check the rules also don't know. And anyway, Chris, even when we flew to the States the last time, he booked an American flight on the British Airways website. And he's booked his cello online. But between the two, this is a warning for cellos, between the two websites, if you book a cello, that ticket doesn't transfer. So he arrived at the airport and his booking didn't exist. So he arrived in New York, I think, 6 hours late, and had been, you know, desperately arguing with them. And it's really, yeah, it's hard. I mean, imagine traveling with the cello plus COVID restrictions. But next time, there's no way I'm spending time with him at the check-in desk. I am going through, having my breakfast.
Yeah. You know, there's a fabulous double bass player in the States who I'm wanting to book. And to my utter astonishment, his manager kind of casually let drop the fact that the bass can be cut in half. I mean, can be taken apart. Have you? No, but it's true for travel. Have you ever heard of that?
No, and it makes me feel ill.
Yeah, it's horrific. It's absolutely, the thought of it. And then imagine getting to the other end with only one half of the bass.
But how?
I suppose the neck comes off.
The neck comes off, but then surely it has to be that's terrible.
Then the bridge has to come off and everything else, right?
No wonder they always sound out of tune. Sorry. No, that was an incredibly snobbish remark, typical of people from this country, and I apologize.
Well, I mean, it's, you know, I only ever hear viola jokes, so this is quite refreshing.
I can't tell viola jokes because I'm in a string quartet.
Yes, oh God.
This, by the way, is coming from a second violinist, so everything I've said can be taken with a pinch of salt.
Oh, all right. Well, this is all going to be followed up when you get here. Can't wait to see you all. Give the others our love.
Will do, absolutely.
Have a safe trip and look after yourselves, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Can't wait to see you.
Okay. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.